Most people keep their food 3 ways, and not one of them truly lasts. The refrigerator buys you a week, maybe 2. The freezer keeps longer, but it keeps nothing on its own. It keeps only so long as the power holds. Lose the wire for a day in a storm, and a whole summer's food thaws into a smell you do not forget. None of it was ever really in your hands. It was hanging on a pole down the road. And the cans and boxes on the store shelf carry a date stamped on the bottom, a year, maybe 2, and then they are spent as well. You are always buying, always throwing out, always trusting. The truck still comes, and the lights stay on. I keep food a different way. The way my mother kept it, and hers before her. Months in the cellar, a year in the jar. And some of it, the right kind, kept good for 25 years and longer, with no machine humming in the corner and no date stamped on anything at all. My name is Eliza. I keep a house, a garden, a root cellar, and a hen house, with 2 little ones still small enough to be underfoot the whole day. One of them forever lifting a lid and letting it drop just to hear the sound it makes. None of what I am going to tell you came out of a book. It came from my mother's hands, and her mother's before that. Learned standing in a kitchen like mine doing the work. And I will give it to you the same way, including the places where a thing fails, because I would rather you trust me than be impressed by me. Folks here 25 years and they want the one trick. The single jar, the secret. There is no single trick. There is a ladder, and you climb it from the bottom rung to the top, and I will take you up it the way I was taken. The first rung is the cellar, and the cellar keeps the season. When I was a girl, my mother would send me down the steps with a candle to bring up carrots for supper, and I can still call up the smell of that place. Cold earth and old apples together. The carrots were not loose on a shelf. They were down in a box of damp sand, buried the way they had been in the ground, the green tops cut back to a thumb's length, and the dirt only shaken off, never washed, for a washed root rots and a dirty one keeps. Here's the whole of why it works. A carrot you pull from the ground is still alive, still breathing, slow and quiet, and the breathing is what uses it up. The cellar does not stop the carrot living. It only slows it living to a crawl, holding the cold near to freezing but never quite to it, and the air heavy and damp, so the root does not give up its water and go soft, cold and damp and dark. That is the whole of it. So my carrots and beets and turnips go in damp sand near the floor, where it is coldest, and my cabbages and apples and potatoes sit a little drier. My onions and garlic and winter squash do not go in the cellar at all, for they want it dry and airy, and the same damp that saves a carrot will rot an onion in a month. Now here's the one hard rule, and my mother said it every autumn until I could say it back in my sleep. Never set the apples next to the potatoes. Never by the carrots either. An apple breathes out something into the air that you cannot smell and cannot see, and that something tells a potato to sprout and turns a carrot bitter as wood. Keep them apart, or you will go down at Christmas to a barrel of green sprouts and a box of carrots gone to nothing. And the cellar is not your 25 years. The cellar is months. A good apple holds till spring, a carrot 4 or 5 months, and then it is done. This is the lowest rung, and it costs almost nothing, a corner, a few crates, a little sand. But it is only the first. The next rung up is the jar, and the jar keeps the year. This is the work of a hot afternoon, the kettle going, the little ones banished to the porch so they do not pull a hot jar down on themselves. You put the summer into glass, and it waits on a shelf in the dark, sealed under a lid that pulled itself down tight as it cooled. But I have to stop right here and tell you the one thing that matters more than anything else I will say today, because I have watched the English learn it wrong off of their screens, and learning this one wrong can truly hurt somebody. There are 2 kinds of food that go into a jar, and they are not kept the same way. Sour foods, your fruit, your tomatoes with a little lemon in them, your pickles under vinegar, those you can put up in a kettle of plain boiling water, because the sourness itself stands guard and holds back the worst of what would spoil them. But your plain foods, your green beans, your corn, your meat, have no sourness to stand guard, and there is a thing that can grow in a sealed jar of plain green beans that boiling water will not kill. The only thing that finishes it is the greater heat of a pressure canner, hotter than the boil, and there is no trick and no shortcut anywhere that gets around it. I say this as plainly as I know how. You cannot safely put up plain green beans, or plain corn, or meat, in a kettle of boiling water, no matter what a cheerful voice tells you on a screen. What grows in that jar has no smell and no taste to warn you, and it is among the deadliest things there is. There was a church dinner, not many years ago, where a crowd was poisoned from potatoes put up wrong at home, and one of them died of it. Now pickled beans under vinegar are safe in the boiling water, because the vinegar is doing the guarding. Plain beans are not. The sourness is the whole dividing line, and you do not cross it. My mother had a flat little rule for it, set over a steaming kettle with her sleeves pushed up. If it did not come up sour, it goes under pressure, and there is no arguing with it. I can still see her jars in a row on the cellar shelf, each one dated in her own slanted hand. The jar, kept honest, gives you a year, maybe 2, for the eating of it. It is not your 25 years either, but the jars last a lifetime. The lids are pennies, and one hot afternoon's work feeds a family the winter through, against a store shelf where every little can is $1 or $2 of somebody else's labor. That is the second rung. Now, the freezer that died in the corner, what was in it most often was meat. And meat is the thing folks worry over most when they think of going without the cold. So let me tell you how my grandmother kept meat with no cold at all, with nothing but salt and smoke. I can still smell her smokehouse if I shut my eyes. It got into your hair and your dress and stayed there the better part of a day. And the thing she kept saying, the way some people keep a verse, was that salt is honest. It does just exactly what it says, and it asks nothing back. Here is what she meant. Salt pulls the water up and out of the meat, draws it toward itself right through the flesh, and the thing that rots meat cannot live without that water. Take the water away, and the rot has nothing to drink and cannot get started. That is all the salt is doing, and it is enough. You bury the cut whole in coarse salt in a crock kept cool near the cold of the cellar, and you leave it a week or 2 while the salt works its way clear to the center, before any spoiling can work its way to the bone. Then it hangs to dry, or it goes to the smoke, and the smoke does 2 more things on top of the salt. It dries the outside harder still, and it lays down its own keeping on the surface. The way you would bar a door the salt had already shut. I will be honest about where this one is hard, because it is the least forgiving thing I will teach you. It wants the cold while it cures. Do it in a warm, damp room, and the meat can turn before the salt ever reaches the middle, and then you have lost the whole cut and you do not eat it. Start with good fresh meat, chilled right off. Lean more than fat, because heavy fat goes rancid where the lean cures clean. But done right, a few dollars of plain salt keeps a whole hog's worth of meat that would otherwise have demanded that humming box run all winter, and set against the English price of bacon and ham, it pays for itself the first season. The next one always seems a small miracle the first time you truly understand it. Because here is food that keeps its own self, with no cold and no heat and no jar, sealed shut at all. My mother had a brown crock that lived in the cool corner of the kitchen, a plate set down inside it, and a clean river stone laid on the plate to hold the whole of it down. In it she made our sauerkraut, and what she told me, when I was small and impatient and wanting to know why we just left it sitting there, was that you do not make the kraut keep. You set the table for the right little creatures, and they keep it for you. What she meant is true, and it is this. On the leaves of the cabbage, already there, far too small to see, are the good little workers. You shred the cabbage and salt it and pack it down tight until its own juices rise over the top, then weight it under that plate and stone so not one leaf lifts up into the air, and those workers wake under the brine and eat the sweetness and turn it sour. And that sourness, the very same guarding sourness from the jars, drives everything that would spoil it right back out. The kraut sours its own self safe, and it comes out of that crock more nourishing than the plain cabbage went in, which is a kindness I do not fully understand, but have eaten my whole life. The one rule is the plate and the stone. Every bit of it must stay down under the brine. Whatever lifts above the wet will grow a fur of mold and has to be skimmed off. And if the whole of it ever goes slimy or soft, or smells foul instead of cleanly sour, then it has gone wrong. And you give it to the hogs, you do not eat it. A too warm corner sours it too fast and leaves it soft, so keep it cool. But a head of cabbage and a handful of salt and a crock your grandchildren will still be using makes a whole winter of kraut for pennies, where the English pay $4 and $5 for a single jar. And now I will tell you the real answer to the question, the thing the title promised you, the food that keeps not for months and not for a year, but for 25 years and longer. And I'm going to be honest with you about it the same way I have been the whole way down this ladder, because the honest answer is the better one. It is none of the things I have told you so far. The cellar keeps the season, the jar the year, the salt the meat through the cold months. Not one is your 25 years, and any voice that tells you a jar of green beans will sit good that long is fooling you. The food that truly keeps for a lifetime is a different food altogether, and it keeps because of what it already is. Think on honey. Honey does not spoil, not in a year, not in a lifetime. There is honey that was found in the old tombs in Egypt, thousands of years down in the dark, and it was still honey, still good to eat. And the reason is plain once you have heard it. There is almost no water in honey for anything to live on, and it is faintly sour besides, and so nothing that rots can ever get a start in it. Salt is the same, and sugar, nothing lives in them. And then there are the dry seeds of the harvest, the wheat, the dried field corn, the dried beans, the white rice, and these are the very heart of it. Dry them hard until a bean snaps clean across instead of bending. Put them up in tight bins and crocks and tins in the cool, dry dark of the cellar, shut against the damp and the light and the mice. And there they will sit, sound and fit to eat, for 25 and even 30 years. I have dipped the tin scoop into my grandmother's wheat bin and brought up wheat older than I was myself, and milled it and baked it, and we ate it for our supper that same night. Here's the whole secret of it, and it is not really a secret at all, only a thing that got let go and forgotten. Everything that rots your food needs three things, and only three. It needs water and air and warmth. Dry the grain hard, and you have taken its water. Shut it up tight, and you have taken its air. Keep it cold in the cellar, and you have taken its warmth. Take all three away at once, and there is nothing left for the rot to feed on, and the grain only waits for you, patient as a stone, for as long as ever you need. Dry, dark, cold, and shut away from the air. That is the whole of it. That is all food has ever asked of anyone. I will give you the one honest warning that goes with it. It has to be the whole dry grain and the white rice, not the brown rice and not the ground meal, because those carry an oil in them that goes rancid in a matter of months no matter what you do. And warmth is the thief here above all. Every bit of heat you let in cuts the years you get by half. So a hot attic or a sun-struck shed will quietly undo all of it. The old beans will cook up hard and want a long soak, but they will still feed you. Only the damp truly ruins it past saving, and the damp is the one thing you can most easily guard against. This is the cheapest food there is and the longest keeping, both at once. A little money, laid down one time, buys you a floor under your whole pantry that will outlast your own children's childhoods. My grandmother said it, and the old women of our district all said the very same thing, as though they had each one learned it off the other. Honey does not die, and dry and dark and cold is all that food has ever asked of you. Give it that, and it will wait for you 20 years. There are a few smaller things I keep, and I will give them to you quickly. We coat the eggs over in lime and set them in the cool of the cellar, and the lime seals up the little holes in the shell so nothing can get in, and we eat good eggs all the deep of winter when not a hen is laying. We pack cooked meat down under its own melted fat and let it set firm, and the fat shuts the air clean away, and what cannot reach the air cannot turn, so the meat keeps for months under nothing but its own grease. We string apple rings and bunches of herbs up from the warm kitchen rafters, never the damp cellar, because up there in the dry, warm air the water is pulled right out of them, until there is nothing left for spoiling to take hold of. And we braid the onions and the garlic and hang them in a dry, airy corner where the papery skin and the moving air keep the rot off, and they hold till spring with no work at all. None of this was ever lost because it stopped working. It works just as well in my kitchen today as it did in my grandmother's. Not one bit less. It faded out of ordinary houses for a far simpler reason. It faded because the humming box made the forgetting easy. The old ways ask a little of you all through the year. A cellar wants checking, a crock wants keeping under, a jar wants dating in your own hand, a bin wants kept dry. None of it is hard, but it is steady, and it never quite lets you forget that the keeping of your family is in your own two hands. The machine asks nothing of you at all. It only hums there in the corner and lets you forget, right up until the morning it goes quiet and asks for the whole of it back at once. That is a poor trade when you lay it out plain. A little tending given up for a wire you do not even own. None of this came to me new. It came down to me hand to hand from my mother, and from women who never once in their lives owned a single thing that hummed. And one of these days, sooner than I think, it will go down again out of my hands and into two small ones who do not yet know that the lifting of a lid and the letting of it drop is the very first thing they are learning.